And we are back. Still a great new year. It is still January, the patron saint of bad movies, but not necessarily on DVD and Blu-ray. Tim, thank you for being here once again.
Yes. As Mark floats around Europe.
Mark is
hopefully literally floating around.
Mark is having a grand old time in Paris, and hopefully the city of lights and love. Hopefully he's getting a lot of light and love. I know it's cold and snowy and rainy there too, so I'm sure he'll be getting a lot of that as well. And, of course, as a matter of housekeeping, for those who have asked, of course, our opening music and closing music is by the punk band Ball and Chain, who are not necessarily doing anything right now, but I keep harassing them to put their stuff up online. I will let you know as soon as it is. And if you need to reach us otherwise, gods@digigods.com for Vox boxes, emails, any insults you want to lob at us. And for those who have also asked, yes, the CineGods site is still coming along ever so slowly. We have finalized logos, and we are moving on to the final pieces of site design. But the logos are basically a derivation of the current logo, looking really nice.
Yeah, excellent.
So we've got our new DigiGods logo, got our new CineGods logo, got all that stuff finished up. It's looking very nice. So we're moving along. Shouldn't be too long, and of course we'll have many people writing for the site. And the plan is also to solicit many of you out there to also contribute to the site as well, because our listeners have been such a huge part of what we have done over the last many years. So Tim, as we record this now, we are on the verge of the LAFCA dinner, where you will be presenting the cinematography award. So wishing you luck on that as well. The dinner is always a fun time. I'm going to miss it.
It's always interesting, that's for sure.
Yes. Well, you never know what the award recipients will say. Yeah. That's the wild card. Yeah. And LAFCA members have gotten a little less long-winded. There used to be a few members of the group who you say to them, okay, 90 seconds. Your speech is 90 seconds. Please rehearse it and keep it at 90 seconds. And next thing you know, we're sitting there eating dinner, and somebody's gone up there, and they are going on for 7 or 8 minutes, and it's like, what?
Well, the way our dinner is in fact a dinner. It's an award dinner. Yes. We've already given the awards. They already know who's going to win.
They know, yeah.
So the wine is flowing and other liquids and spirits prior to folks walking up to that podium, which I think might be why some of those speeches will elongate a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
Lose track of time.
Casey Affleck, who's been getting all the Best Actor awards from just about everybody except for us, he didn't get ours. But he when he accepted his Best Actor from the New York Film Critics Circle, I don't know, did you follow any of that? I
didn't see that.
He's a kid from Boston. He's not gonna kiss up to the people who gave him an award. Which is interesting because there is that East Coast blue collar impulse in the Afflecks and the Matt Damons where they almost feel. Look, you and I worked for a certain family once upon a time who owned a paper here, who were from Long Island, who are of that same mentality. Yeah. And it took me a long time to separate when the cursing was really bawling someone out and when it was an expression of love and appreciation. Yeah. Because that certain individual that we both worked for repeatedly would say the same thing to his parents when he was screaming hellfire at them as he would say to his wife when he was thanking her for throwing...
Or his young children.
Or his children.
It's like all the same.
It's all the same. Yeah. So Casey Affleck of the same mentality goes up there and basically just started reading all of the quotes from all the members of the New York Film Critics Circle who had ripped him in previous performances. It was sort of like, thank you for this award. This is what you once said about me. And he went through them. He actually put it all together, and he was just humiliating them. And what a way to say thank you.
What a burn. What a burn.
Anyway, so yes, you never know what actually happens at these awards shows.
It's a good performance, but you know what? We didn't give it to him. So we will not have to concern ourselves with that.
Not at all. Yeah. So let's. We left off on docs last week, and we didn't get to all of them. So let's kick up on docs this week.
And there were a few interesting ones,
really interesting ones
we had left over, including Being Evil, which is a documentary about Evel Knievel, of course. This one's kind of interesting. Johnny Knoxville, executive producer on this thing, gets way behind. And you know what I like about this film is that it doesn't. It looks at all the blemishes of Evel Knievel. It doesn't just romanticize him. It doesn't just make him a hero.
It's really interesting.
It gets behind the scenes. This is a guy from Butte, Montana, born in Butte, Montana, in oil and coal country where things were hard, where the idea was that you throw a punch first and you ask questions later. Where women were treated in a particular way or existed in a society.
Hard scrabble guy.
And and all of that carried over into the Evel Knievel that we knew, and that's what this documentary is about. It's really sort of interesting to me. It's not like I grew up with him. I remember him. I remember that jump over Snake Canyon and Devil, whatever it was. And all that kind of stuff. He was a part of an icon of my youth.
Well, it was an era when being a daredevil was a job.
Yeah, it was an actual thing you could do.
It was a thing you could do. You could say, I think I will be a daredevil. I can be a stuntman. I could be a rocket scientist. I could be a physician, or I could be a daredevil.
It was actually go do it, yeah.
And there were a few guys doing this, but he was the one that really put it over the top.
And didn't actually require any skills or anything like that. Evel Knievel was never a particularly good motorcycle rider.
No.
Yeah, I mean, he could make it go, and he had no scientific acumen.
No.
Everything was simply just about actually just doing it.
Yeah, he just jumped things. It was how far can you jump with your car, your motorcycle, your rocket car. I mean, it was. I mean, I guess in some ways it shared something with mixed martial arts and wrestling and some of the other sort of sensational, violent sports today, where you tune in to sort of see how extreme it gets. But yeah, it was. Anyway,
no different than going to the carnival. In a certain extent, just going to the carnival. Yeah. Streets of Compton, which is a 2-part miniseries about the city of Compton, whom you and I don't live terribly far from.
Not far from at all. No.
As an extremely sort of interesting and complicated place. Of course, we know about Compton in the terms that we know about Compton, street gangs and violence and records and all of that. Of course, NWA came out of Compton. Ice-Cube and Eazy-E and
the Williams sisters.
And the Williams sisters also came out of Compton. And the game. And this documentary is about that. It's about Compton as a place representative of all of the things that we sort of ordinarily think about Compton, but also representative as this place that put out artists, exceptional artists and athletes that really have done extraordinary things in the world. Interestingly, some of whom have come back to Compton in recent years. Dr. Dre built a big complex down there in recent years to try to sort of revitalize the city, which will be interesting if they can pull that off. Compton is juxtaposed to Inglewood. It's bumped up right against Inglewood.
It's interesting. Compton, which is its own city, and Inglewood, which is its own city, and then South LA, formerly known as South Central LA, which is part of Los Angeles, and they're all bumped up against each other, and they all kind of bleed into each other, but yet they are different. One of the things that I've always found interesting about LA is that when you go to other parts of the world, if you go to the outskirts of Paris or the slums of London, the blue collar parts of London, or even the bad side of Chicago or New York, when you're in the bad part of town. Yeah. The bad parts of LA don't look bad.
If you travel through the suburbs of Compton or Inglewood, or any place you want, Watts, any place you want, they're perfectly lovely.
It looks just like any other part of Los Angeles.
Looks like Burbank, Glendale.
Yeah,
and it's really sort of
interesting dynamic.
Yeah, interesting dynamic. Bruce Lee, Tracking the Dragon. A documentary about a film that goes to all these sort of iconic locations from Bruce Lee films. Yeah. So, like, if you're a big Bruce Lee fan and you're wondering about where this fight took place, or this film does the whole thing. Fantastic. Walks you right through it. Interesting how Bruce Lee continues to be 40 plus years after his death.
And I don't know that we have examined what an iconic figure he was, because Bruce Lee did so many things that we really overlook. Bruce Lee was the first true cross-cultural, multiracial movie star, not just because he was a star in Hong Kong and in China and in Europe and in the United States. I mean, he was a global star.
Including on Network American Television.
But he had a following in the United States, in the white community, in the Latino community, in the black community. Yeah. And he created the environment for stars like Chuck Norris,
Jackie Chan, Jet Li. I mean, for years later, for all of those people who would come years later, including the black ones, who played Black Belt Jones. Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly. All of these sort of stars. Bruce Lee sort of created Dolomite, Rudy Ray Moore, for the environment for all of these people to sort of do the things that they did years and years and years later. So that's amazing. That's a legacy. Yeah, it sort of continues to go on. Tesla, interesting PBS documentary. Happened to see this one when it was on PBS. Tesla, the madman. So Nikola Tesla,
and they're doing a movie, about Tesla versus Edison.
Exactly, which was a whole thing at the time, the Tesla Edison thing to do Tesla coil, whether we would have DC or AC transmission of electricity. Tesla, who anticipated wireless everything. So this world that we live in now with Bluetooth and wireless, Tesla anticipated all of that. He was unfortunately a little bit, crazy. I guess that's which was the thing that he got stuck with, being this sort of a mad scientist. He even looked a little like a mad scientist with the hair and all of that stuff. While Thomas Edison, and for that matter Marconi, were these sort of like statesman gentlemen, with the white Edison with the white hair, and Marconi, very formal, almost Victorian. Yeah. And then you had Nikola Tesla running around electrocuting goats and stuff like that. Interesting documentary. Happened to see it when it was on. It was actually quite good. What else you got over there?
Let me hit a couple of PBS things. Got 3 here. This first one, a frontline called The Choice 2016. Now, this was made pre-election, so it really is. Now it's almost like an archival documentary. It's not out of date, but it's interesting. It is an investigative biography of what it is of both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And I think in time this may become a very, very interesting film, because it's not looking back at the election after its conclusion. It is sort of in the heat, in the middle of it, and trying to be as investigative and honest and open and balanced as possible. And they hit some roadblocks and they push past some other ones. And it is actually very, very well done. And it will be interesting to see how this compares when we get, say, 5, 10, 15 years past this election, and we know the consequences of it. So very, very interesting. If you buy this, keep it on hand. You're going to pull it out in about a decade, and it's going to have a whole new meaning.
And even for now, that doc, given what we know about the way that election was covered journalistically, and the failures of journalism with respect to that election, that documentary, with all of these sort of journalistic efforts in the thick of it right then, you look at that documentary and you think to yourself, man, they're blowing it. They think that this thing is important, and now hindsight being 2020 as it is, we know that thing isn't important.
Yeah, it's very true.
So it's very, very, very interesting stuff.
And then Nova, 15 Years of Terror. Nova is always great, just as Frontline and American Experience are always great. They are the bread and butter of PBS's documentary journalism coverage. It's been 15 years since the attacks of September 11th, 2001, and this is a look back. And in a sense, kind of an attempt to look forward. And it says, where have we come? Where are we going? Are we dealing with this correctly? Are we seeing it correctly? And it is absolutely superb. It is thorough and scholarly. And then the last one from PBS is Super Hummingbirds, documentary for Nature series. I have a great affinity for hummingbirds because they're awesome and beautiful and weird and death-defying and stupid all at the same time. In my mother-in-law's house, I remember this was a few Christmases ago, a hummingbird flew into the house. And we could not get that thing out of the house. Opened up every window, every door. The exit was right there in front of it. This thing, even like a pigeon, which has to be the stupidest thing on the entire planet. Pigeons are just the dumbest animals ever. Even a pigeon would have seen the door and known how to get out. A fly knows to fly toward the light. The hummingbird, it kept flying to the top of the Christmas tree. That's what it kept doing. You just wanted to just at a certain point give up and say, "Fine, you're an ornament. Welcome to the house." It was so insane, but they're amazing creatures, and high-speed photography and everything else. This is on Blu-ray, and it's really, really beautiful. They're just amazing creatures. For despite their stupidity, they're really amazing. So you understand how they mate, how they nest, how all of that stuff. It's really, really amazing. Beautiful, beautiful photography, and it's only an hour long, gorgeous Blu-ray.
Oh man, that's so neat. I have Steve McQueen, The Man, Le Mans.
I love this documentary.
It's a great documentary.
Love it.
1971, Steve McQueen made a movie, 24 Hours at Le Mans.
Yeah.
That movie is striking in and of itself. That movie has a sort of verite sort of style to it. It's not. I mean, everything that's happening at Le Mans is happening. He's actually driving in Le Mans at the time. And then there's this all sort of dramatic narrative that's going on behind it.
It's his Apocalypse Now, right?
Oh,
It's his Heaven's Gate. And there's no script.
Yeah.
And they're panicking, and they're
changes directors halfway through.
And it's just trying to make, and he just wants to make it real. I want people to feel like they're really at Le Mans.
The first 35 minutes of that movie has no dialogue. Just sort of ambient sound of Le Mans, but no dialogue per se.
There's all him in this. It's all interviews with him and the audio, and it's fascinating.
And this documentary gets behind the scenes of all of that and sort of it's really, really interesting stuff. I like that movie, by the way, 24 Hours at Le Mans.
Oh, I love it.
It didn't make any money.
Still a great film.
I think it was either the first or maybe the second film that he made with his company.
Yeah.
When he had that power in 1971. But it's a fantastic film, I think, anyway.
Really great. Hooligan Sparrow, really interesting doc. This is from Kino Lorber. This is about Ye Haiyan, who is otherwise known as Hooligan Sparrow, who is an activist in China, and basically, being an activist in China doesn't pay a lot of money. You can be an activist in certain parts of the world and be funded by nonprofits and other, there are ways of sort of making it pay or basically covering your expenses. She doesn't. She loses her home. She's on the street.
Literally becomes homeless.
Literally becomes homeless in one part of this, trying to care for her daughter, who supports her, but just mom.
While fighting for issues that are bigger than just her and her life.
It's she's a lot of her fight is for sex workers in China, but she's basically fighting for women's rights and the recognition of women, and it is amazing the stern stuff that she is made of, and the government there are parts of the film where the government agents show up, try to break her door down, try to stop the shooting of the documentary. I mean, it gets intense. It is an intense film. Really, really worth checking out. It'll tell you a lot about modern-day China, and especially what human rights activists in China have to go through. It is astonishing.
I Am Bolt, a documentary about Usain Bolt.
I am as heterosexual as they come, but if Usain Bolt asked me to consider it,
let's go hang out. For one thing, I want some of your DNA because that's
amazing.
Just insane. This is a really neat sort of all access sort of let's hang around with Usain Bolt and his celebrity friends, Williams, Ziggy Marley, all of these sort of people who adore him, by the way, but not in that sort of sycophantic sort of way. Yeah. They actually just like him, that dude. Yeah. He's a cool guy. If he didn't happen to run, 100 miles an hour or whatever, he would still be a cool guy to hang out with, which you sort of get a sense of when you see him in the world. He seems like a fun guy. This
is what the thing I love about him is he's got the balance totally right. He's not one of these amazing athletes who comes and he's so humble. I'm just so glad to have the opportunity, and I'm just a guy. I'm an ordinary guy. No, you're not an ordinary guy. Yeah. You're the fastest human being who has ever been on the entire planet, and you're amazing because you're like taller than you should be to be that fast. You're a freak of nature, and it's amazing. And he knows that, and he knows he's awesome, and he has an ego about it. But he's not a jerk about it. Yeah. He sort of has fun with it, and he's still approachable, and he's still everybody's friend, and he still walks the streets of Jamaica, and he loves the kids, and the kids love him, and he goes out, and everybody sees him, and he doesn't lock himself in an ivory tower.
You never see him, in all these sort of wacky... Yeah. He's Pele. I always compare him to Pele.
Perfect.
He's
Perfect.
Pele.
Yeah.
Of his generation, his sport.
Totally true. New Orleans Music in Exile, another great documentary by Robert Muggy. Who just makes some of the best documentaries around, really great. Every single amazing New Orleans musician currently living shows up in this thing. It is really, really tremendous. But what this ultimately is about the what happened in New Orleans music in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, which is that it wound up no longer being localized in New Orleans.
A diaspora.
It became a diaspora, exactly. And it is about both the poetry and the tragedy of that. And it's terrific. But ultimately, you're watching this because it's about amazing musicians and amazing music. And that is from Music Video Distributors, MVD, and it is on Blu-ray. And then we also have The Seasons at Quincy, 4 Portraits of John Berger, which is this is directed by the 4 portraits directed by Bartek, and I'm not going to come close to pronouncing his name correctly, Giajos, and then Colin McCabe, Christopher Roth, and of course Tilda Swinton, which is the way that this thing is marketed. John Berger is a fascinating figure, and he really kind of a bohemian jack of all trades and philosopher, artist, poet, you name it. Yeah. And a fascinating guy. And these are 4 seasonal chapters that look at different periods and different elements of his life. And it's an interesting kind of avant-garde-ish approach. Tilda Swinton is really probably the only person that got this made. And it's worth checking out. This is from Icarus, and it is really, really interesting, especially for fans of Berger. All right, so let's. I'm going to talk about just a few Fox things here, and then we'll cover some. We've got TV, we've got anime, we got a lot of stuff that really kind of accumulated over the holidays. So we're going to try to put a dent in some of this. There are some really interesting manufacturer-on-demand MOD titles that have come out from Fox and MGM. The Fox Cinema Archives titles, for the most part. Some of these are really, really fun. They're movies that have just completely fallen off the radar, and like all the MOD stuff that lives in the archives and the libraries of the major studios, a lot of these just, they don't normally see the light of day. Nobody knows they're there, but you have a lot of great archivists and historians working at the studios who mine through this stuff and say, you know what, it's time that this be rediscovered. And, this is, for film history, this is wonderful. CinemaScope classic, Women's World. A lot of fun here. This is just one of those Battle of the Sexes romantic comedy things of the era. It just is so of the era. If you like Mad Men, you'll love this thing.
Nicolescu?
Directed by Gene Nicolescu.
Yeah. Who was a wonderful painter. People forget that before he was a filmmaker, he was a painter, a fairly famous painter. Yeah. Portraits of important Europeans and whatnot. Then, of course, he had to flee. But anyway.
So essentially, the story here is that you have a guy who runs an auto company and needs a new sort of vice president to fill in, and the issue here is whether or not your spouse whether or not the woman is adequate to sort of complement the man in the job. It's very Mad Men, very regressive sex role stuff, but yet fun at the same time as long as you look at it through that kitschy prism.
And despite that theme, in this case, Lauren Bacall, as I recall.
Well, Lauren Bacall,
Van Heflin,
Lauren Bacall, June Allison.
The women are actually very sharp.
The women make the movie.
They're very sharp. They bring these men to heel, actually, in the way
Arlene Dahl,
and the way these movies act. So you look at this movie and you see what it's about, and it seems like, oh my God, how. But no, the women are really strong in these movies.
The men all basically take the second role here: Clifton Webb, Cornel Wilde, Van Heflin, and of course the great Fred McMurray. Yeah. It's really a lot of fun. And then we've also got Sentimental Journey with John Payne and Maureen O'Hara, co-starring William Bendix. This is just a really good, solid old melodrama. A lot of fun. It's about a woman who adopts an orphan girl. And there's a whole tragic angle to it that I won't reveal. Directed by Walter Lang, and some good melodramas at the time. Really, that's just a lot of good, drippy, tear-jerking stuff. Clifton Webb also shows up along with Maureen O'Hara again and Robert Young in Sitting Pretty. Sitting Pretty is kind of a silly film.
Walter Lang again.
Walter Lang again. It's a bit of a silly film, but it's also a Mr. Belvedere movie. Mr. Belvedere. It's Mr. Belvedere basically being a babysitter to his kids, and it's fine. Betty Grable, Cesar Romero, George Montgomery, Coney Island, another big color musical extravaganza from the day. Really, it's you're watching this just to see Betty Grable shake her stuff and put on a show, and it's that's all there is to it. Also directed by Walter Lang, but this one written by George Seaton, who one of the great screenwriters of the era. And then speaking of Langs, this one is directed by the other Lang, Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang's really fascinating Western Union based on the book by Zane Grey. Now, Zane Grey, of course, wrote a lot of great Western material, but when you put it in the hands of a German director of the Expressionist school, it becomes a whole different weird kind of a thing.
It's a Western noir.
It is a Western noir. It's absolutely what it is.
Yeah, these angles, and and when you're watching it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here?
It really is. It's fascinating. It is just, it's done in such an unusual, fascinating way. It's about a couple of brothers who are outlaws and go separate ways, and the separated by good and bad thing that we get in so many movies, the Cain-Abel paradigm. But what's interesting is you get people like Robert Young and Randolph Scott and Dean Jagger, along with Virginia Gilmore, but specifically the men who all were Western stalwarts. Yeah. But they're totally different here. It's like Fritz Lang doesn't want to let them be what they've been in other movies. He makes them into something else, and it's really fascinating. So...
really interesting stuff.
Good stuff.
I got a few over here, so I go.
All right, let's pile through the. Let's go through it.
Well, the thing about these movies, some of these movies anyway, is that they were really extraordinary movies that gave us some interesting firsts, if not first, close to the first. So John McNaughton's Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is a young Michael Rooker. I remember this being just the most profoundly disturbing movie. He's just this drifter. He commits these brutal murders. He's just sort of like in the world doing this stuff, and there we are, just sort of like watching him. It's sort of loosely based on the story of Henry Lee Lucas, the actual serial killer. But this movie, I remember just having a sense of verite about it. And I remember this is a 1986 film. Yeah. People at the time thinking that this was a documentary about Henry Lee Lucas. It was a whole thing, and that particular. So anyway, this is the 30th anniversary edition of this film. All kinds of special features here. Commentary track with the director. Anyway, the more stuff you can possibly list. So I don't know if this kind of stuff is your kind of stuff. This is a hell of a callback.
I'm going to throw another little weird sidebar out there. So in 1992, I went to my first Cannes Film Festival, and one of the films in competition that year was Caro Diario, My Diary by Nanni Moretti. Now, Nanni Moretti, of course, went on to win a Palme d'Or for The Sun's Room, and he's still a great filmmaker. Fun films that come out all the time. He's had a couple over the last couple of years. Very politically active in Italy as well. Caro Diario is a very weird little road trip movie. He stars in it himself, and he's just on a kind of a whimsical road trip and writing a diary about it. And one of the recurring themes in that movie, which is why I can't watch Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer seriously anymore, is how horrified he is, his character in the film. He's horrified by this movie. And you first see as he's sitting in a movie theater watching it, and they cut to the shot where Henry basically slams a television set over that guy's head. Yeah. And you cut to Nanni Moretti sitting and squirming in his seat and covering his eyes. And for the remainder of the movie, there's all this referential stuff. It's like, I wonder if it's going to be as bad as Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Everything is compared to the film, and so now I can't watch that movie without thinking of Nanni Moretti squirming in his seat. It's just ruined the movie for me.
That's astounding. That's astounding. That's amazing. That's amazing. What else do we have here? Believe it or not, 1996. We are looking at the 20th anniversary edition of Jerry Maguire.
Good night, folks. I'm done. I'm going to go kill myself.
20 years ago, Jerry Maguire. You had me at, what did he have?
Hello.
Hello. Had her at hello. it's fantastic. Anyway, this is I don't have to tell you about the movie, but this is jam packed with everything on the planet, including several all new special features. A 3-part retrospective feature film featuring interviews with Tom Cruise and Cameron Crowe, nearly 60 minutes of never before seen footage and deleted scenes and extended scenes and all of that kind of stuff. Photo gallery, lots and lots of commentaries. You got commentaries from Cruise, Zellweger, Cuba Gooding Jr., Cameron Crowe, more and all kinds of stuff, including things that are not even related to the movie.
I still love this movie.
It's actually, this movie still works for me too.
I don't know why Cameron Crowe can't do this again. I don't know what's happened in his life and his heart and his emotions that he can't sort of go to that kind of a place again. But it won an Oscar for him.
Well, the last time, Almost Famous, I think has to be. I mean, I know he's made a few movies. But Almost Famous was the last time that he got to that spot where it really resonated with me in that way. Yeah. Did he do Extremely Close, Extremely Loud, and Incredibly Close?
No, he did. Well, Vanilla Sky is what it all
started.
Well,
that Vanilla Sky adaptation that he did, which I don't hate, but still, after seeing Open
the original,
Eyes, no point.
This is just wonderful, and Ultraviolet. So beautiful. You can add Jerry Maguire to your Ultraviolet library. Which, by the way, I should point out, I am increasingly discovering the joys of Ultraviolet and Disney movies anywhere.
Meaning?
Meaning this. That my daughter is obsessed with 4 films in particular. It is a daily constant rotation between Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White. So it is the Disney Princess complex, the Princess Industrial Complex, as some have referred to it, nonstop every day. This is her choice. We didn't sort of shove princesses down her throat. And my wife insists that they be referred to as warriors, not princesses. So she wants to see her warriors. Okay, fair enough, good. So not a lot of warrior in Snow White, but fair enough. I'll go with it. So rather than sticking in every time one is over and pulling it out and putting it in another disc. I've got the DVD player, the Oppo player, the Blu-ray player. I just switch that thing into the Voodoo mode, and they are all right there.
yes.
Right there. I don't have to get a disc. I don't have to do anything. It's just right there all the time. So there is something to it.
Powerful. Little girls, the things little girls will make you do.
It's true.
Very true. Sudden Fear, 1952, David Miller film. This is an extremely impactful film, even now. This movie still works. It's about this actor who plots to marry this extremely rich woman so that he can kill her. And it works out actually quite intensely. This is from Cohen Features, of course. Audio commentary on this film, as long as a re-release of the trailer and a few other. Look, this is the wonderful Jack Palance looming in black and white. Young Jack Palance, who is just a physical manifestation on screen.
No,
talking slowly and moving. It's just really, really extraordinary. So, one hell of a movie. If you haven't seen it before, Joan Crawford, Jack Palance, Gloria Graham, Sudden Fear.
All right, I'm going to roll through some exploitation-y stuff here, and I'm going to move from one library into another library in a really, really cool way. First, I'm going to start off with Blue Underground's release of 99 Women Behind Bars Without Men. Women in prison movies, they just never get old. This is the 3-disc unrated director's cut edition of the Jess Franco film. If you're a fan of Jess Franco, you have my sympathies, because Tim and I just are not real Jess Franco fans, but yet I find him oddly compelling in some weird ways. He didn't make good movies, but he made movies that I can't stop watching.
They are particular in their own way.
They are indeed. So this is not necessarily at all like the women in prison films that Jonathan Demme wrote and directed early in his career, and he did a lot of them. Caged this and Caged that, and And then what's the one with Pam Grier?
With Pam Grier.
What was that
set
one?
In the Philippines. It was
the white woman and a black woman handcuffed together, and there's a whole.
It's like that whole Sidney Poitier. Tony Curtis thing.
Yeah, exactly. They just did it a female style. Anyway, so Jess Franco, it's a ridiculous movie, but it's insane and it is crazy, and they did a full restoration on it, and it's gorgeous to look at, and yet it's insane. Maria Schell, stars in it, along with Mercedes McCambridge, Maria Rome, and, of course, the great wacky actor Herbert Lom, who just is still doing these things by the 60s and 70s. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But 99 Women, if you want to watch it, Blue Underground on Blu-ray. And then we move into some Vestron films. Now, Vestron has gotten a little bit of a new release on life. Lionsgate is releasing all the old Vestron movies as part of the Vestron Video Collectors Series. Vestron was one of the first companies to actually start making and releasing movies straight to VHS. They kind of pioneered the idea that movies didn't actually, now that the home video market is there, you didn't have to go to a theater first. You could become a brand just in home video.
And there was a moment during the early days of VHS when that was absolutely true. People did not need a film to have had a theatrical release.
Nope.
I would go to and I would just grab them off the shelf.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we get Return of the Living Dead 3. Now, if you haven't seen Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2, that's okay. Plot is not what this is about. This is all about 80s era gore makeup and all that fun stuff. This is a later one. It is in 1992, so it's technically the 90s, but it's still kind of the 80s. And we're sort of on the tail end of that, and it still feels like an '80s movie. It's ridiculous. It's a zombie movie that does not need any explanation. And then we also have from Vestron Video Collector's Series on Blu-ray, CHUD 2, Bud the CHUD. CHUD, of course, stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. And this is from 1988. It is the sequel that did not need to exist because CHUD really pretty much did everything it needed to do. But it's a little bit like Gremlins 2. It gets cheekier and campier, and it's played for laughs, and you see it basically because it's just loaded with 80s kitsch. The hairstyles, the clothes, the look, everything is just really, really 80s. And it's silly. It's meant to be comedic. On the other hand, you could go to the Arrow library, which is being released through MVD, and see the original CHUD, which is also out.
Cannibalistic
Humanoid Underground Dwellers. Yeah. I had friends who just they just were obsessed with this movie. So this is the original CHUD, which is less funny and campy than its sequel, but it because it has real actors in it: John Hurd, Daniel Stern, and it actually is surprisingly effective. Believe it or not, it is still really creepy and very effective. So the original CHUD, I give a preferential treatment. Loaded with extras on this 2-disc edition, interviews, isolated score. A tour of the locations in New York City where they shot it. I mean, they really went to town. It's loaded with fun, cultish goodies. And as long as we're in the Arrow library, we've got 2 more to go for. The Driller Killer, Abel Ferrara's classic. This is a DVD and Blu-ray dual disc set. This is the director-approved edition, so Abel was apparently in his right mind long enough to approve this. A little bit of an odd guy, but
Abel made a couple of movies I really King of New York.
He's like Cronenberg in this sense that even when he's making something like Driller Killer, which is a straight-up exploitation film, there's still an artist at work trying to do something interesting. Like you watch Videodrome or even anything that Cronenberg did.
He did Abel did a version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes, he did.
It was actually
which
good.
Mark and I talked about some weeks ago. Yeah, which is now out on Blu-ray as well. Anyway, you get an audio commentary from Abel Ferrara, moderated by the author of the book about him, Brad Stevens, and that is a really, really interesting commentary. It's not as insightful as I perhaps wished it were, but it's really, really interesting. And then, again, just loaded with extras. Really fascinating. You get 2 aspect ratios of the film here, 185 and 137. And, Driller Killer is kind of the film that led to his career going more legit. But it's creepy and pretty gory. And then lastly, from the Arrow Library, Creepshow 2, another sequel that did not need to exist. The original Creepshow is fun, especially seeing Stephen King as an actor. And Creepshow 2 was an attempt by George Romero and Stephen King to push it a little bit too far. So, but that said, a lot of extras here. If you're a fan of the film, if you're a fan of the stories here, there's effects featurettes, and there's an audio commentary with the director, a new interview with actor Daniel Beer, and other assorted goodies, stills and trailers and TV commercials.
Space Jam, believe it or not.
My appreciation for that film has gone up ever since they announced Space Jam 2 with LeBron, which I know is just going to be unwatchable. So now I'm kind of nostalgic for this.
Of course,
I didn't like it at the time.
This is one of the early combining animation with live action. Michael Jordan, of course, in the movie. The Looney Tunes need to win the game, so they get Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's first and only movie? First and only movie?
I think he's played himself in a few cameo, but the only one that he has been the star of. As opposed to a cameo.
Which, of course, this opened the way for Shaquille O'Neal to do Shazam. Or Kazam. And Steel. So Michael Jordan opened the way. Joe Pickup, who directed this movie, did a couple of music videos, Michael Jackson music videos, I recall.
And Let It Ride with Richard Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss was his feature film. And then, for whatever reason, this. This film has a popular following. Lots of people love Space Jam.
Pitka has... he's still a big commercial director. He just doesn't do features. If you see any commercials for like American Express or for where there are maybe like 8 or 9 different locations around the globe, his commercials, the ones that he does now, they usually start off, "We operate." They use like tech companies. Tech companies do it too. "We operate in 375 countries around the globe," and you'll see shots of people like in India and in Nigeria and in Siberia and Mongolia and Argentina and Nebraska, and they're sitting at computers or they're playing with their children, and we make life better all across our shared home. Those are all that's what he does now. Yeah.
Oh, well, interesting. This has all digital HD, all kinds of featurettes and commentaries and all kinds. Space Jam, a lot of fun there. The Magic Box, which is about the films of Shirley Clarke. The extraordinary woman director.
It's from Milestone. Milestone has been really going to town for Shirley Clarke for a long time.
And Shirley was just an avant-garde experimental filmmaker who did a couple of features that even as features were still avant-garde. People with the cool room, people would talk directly to the camera and all that kind of stuff. Was she a UCLA girl? Was she one of your?
I think she was. Yeah.
I think she was a UCLA girl. So like as you say, from Milestone, 3-disc deluxe set covering the films from 1929 to 1987. The Dancer, Bride, Runaway, The Radical. It's just fantastic stuff. So check that out. I have Quiet Earth.
That's great.
A really fantastic sort of a sci-fi film. Groundbreaking. A guy wakes up. He thinks he's the only person on the planet. He finds out that there are a couple of people left. He seems to be the only, and all these sort of agendas and everything that play out. A really, really powerful film. Commentary from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
On this documentary, of course, noted physiologist Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Of the most recent incarnation of Cosmos.
Exactly, which is a just interesting thing in and of itself. I want to watch this just so I can turn on the commentary to see what the heck Neil is talking about. This has other bonus features, and including a couple of essays on the...
Pretty great.
What is this, Blu-ray?
Blu-ray. Blu-ray from the Film Movement Collectors series. And then lastly on this, well, it's not even, it's like a classic movie now because it was last year, so we're including it in the segment. It's a 2-film collection of Mad Max Fury Road, which also includes the Mad Max Fury Road Black and Chrome edition. Now, I don't know why they released this, because George Miller just, I guess, felt like the movie is cooler in black and white. So he gives you the version, the theatrical version, and a black and white version of it, which is the black and chrome edition.
It's a rock and roll movie, that's for sure. That's interesting, though. Black and white.
I don't find that it is all that interesting. And I mean, it's a great movie, but watching it in black and white, I'm just struck by the fact that I'm watching Mad Max Fury Road in black and white. Yeah. It doesn't really change anything. It's a very peculiar gimmick, and I don't really get why he wanted this. But in any case, it's got a new introduction by George Miller, where he tries to justify it, and not very well. And then you get some featurettes, and I would really say, if you have the previous edition, don't dibble dip.
Or just, put it in, go to your television menu settings, find the selection for color, and reduce it to 0.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else going on there that I don't get. Which, maybe there is. Maybe there is something else going on there.
Okay, let's hit some TV. I'm gonna burn as quickly as I can through a giant. We overdid it a little bit when we solicited the people at Fox to get us some of their National Geographic television stuff.
Good stuff all.
It's all really good stuff, but there's a ton of it. So here we go, really, really quickly. These are all series from the National Geographic Channel, and as many as I was able to get a look at, they're all worth checking out. I got to be honest, National Geographic does a really, really good job with all their stuff. It sets itself apart from your usual PBS and your Learning Channel and all the other ones because they really are trying to keep it real and keep it serious. So, Southern Justice Season 3 is out, 2 discs. This is all about a sheriff deputies in a county in Tennessee and in another county in North Carolina. It is not like Cops. This is much more earnest and real stuff. We also have Return from the Dead, which is this is a documentary about a neuroscientist looking into the human brain and near-death experiences and all of that stuff. So not terribly conclusive, but still very interesting and provocative. We have Season 3 of When Sharks Attack. That warrants absolutely no introduction. It is great photography, but I don't like watching it because it makes me scared and have nightmares. I Am Rebel is a documentary series about, this is 4 episodes in this. This is all about I don't even know how to really put this, but it is about living outside the box. It is about people who just find a way to make life better, not by breaking the law, but by breaking the rules. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. That is really interesting and very sharp. Rebel Pope is all about the current Pope Francis and how he has sort of changed the papacy and turned the church on its head and all of the residual effects of that. I don't know that that's conclusive or not, but it's interesting. Animals Gone Wild Season 3. This is a little bit like the When Sharks Attack.
I hate to interrupt, but you know what's funny about the current Pope? Is that everybody forgets that the other Pope, he's still there.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's in a little room. In the back. Everybody forgets he's not dead yet.
No.
They've been waiting for that guy. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's still there.
He's still there. 2 popes right now. It's interesting. Animals Gone Wild Season 3. This is like When Sharks Attack, except it's not sharks. It's bears and hippos and rhinos and birds and everything else, just being unbelievably brutal and ruthless and not holding anything back. Missing Dial is a 2-disc set, 6 episodes. All of this is about, and it's not the dial on your television. This is about Cody Romandile, who is the son of an explorer named Romandile. And Cody disappeared while hiking in Central America. And this is a really intriguing kind of a whodunit thing that goes into trying to figure out where he went and what happened to him, and it is a little bit unnerving. Dr. Oakley, Yukon Vet, Season 3. I don't need to explain that. She's a vet, and she works in the Yukon, and it is beautifully photographed, and it is really informative, and she is awesome. Speaking of Neil deGrasse Tyson, Season 1 of Star Talk. This is another show where he talks to all kinds of interesting people. And
I've been listening to that show as a podcast for I had no idea it was an actual television show.
It is. It's his late night talk show. If you get sick of watching comics and people that just make jokes, you can turn on to a guy who's really kind of amazingly brilliant.
And just talking. I had no idea it was an actual show.
Yeah, like Jimmy Carter's on this.
Yeah.
And Season 1 of The Great Human Race, which is also really, really interesting. This is 2 discs, 10 episodes, which is all about, the archaeological history of humankind just managing to survive under all these inclement conditions. Really, really interesting. Just like we're racing from the past to the future. Very, very, Very interesting. Migrations, season 1. Very clever little pun on the title. Migrations with M-Y. 2 discs, 8 episodes. This is similar in some respects to the Great Human Race. This is, although kind of projected to the animal world, I guess is the best way of putting it. Focusing on the kind of like a safari tour that visits the wildebeest migration across the Serengeti. Very, very interesting. Just because it makes me want to do it. Right? And our friend Nadim, who has guested on this show before briefly, Nadim grew up all over Africa because his dad was a UN diplomat. So he lived in like 5 or 6 different countries in Africa, and he chased wildebeests as a kid.
Yeah.
How do you, really?
As a kid, I thought a wildebeest was a made-up thing.
No.
It's an actual thing.
And he would chase them.
He actually was chasing the real thing.
I can't even imagine that. Original Sin, Sex. Not quite so National Geographic-y. This is 2 discs, 6 episodes. It's not as titillating as the artwork and the commercials necessarily lead it to be. Tries to sort of be a little bit provocative, but at the same time, it also just sort of analyzes sex in society and in the media and how it's presented and so forth and so on. Gerald R. Ford, Test of Character, narrated by Jeff Daniels, revisits the presidency of a man who was never actually elected to the presidency, which is kind of amazing. He wasn't even elected on a ticket.
Yeah.
He was, it's the most fascinating presidency. He was selected after the previous vice president,
Spiro
Agnew, resigned.
Yeah.
And then
indicted for tax evasion, if I recall.
Yeah, and then became president when Nixon resigned.
Yeah.
It's maybe the only president who never actually ran on a ticket.
And because I'm so old, I actually remember all of this in real time. Might have been elected himself had he not pardoned
Nixon. True. Might
have beat Jimmy Carter.
Could have changed everything.
Might have beat Jimmy Carter.
He might have. So, in any case, this revisits what what he had to do to sort of help heal the country after Watergate and all of that, and what a tall order that was. Very interesting. Primal Survivor, season 1. Essentially, just one of these Survivor type shows, but it's not like Survivor, the game show, the reality show. This is more about the reality of if you have to survive and do all that Boy Scout stuff, and let's say you're caught in the Amazon, what do you need to do? The Greeks is a great 3-episode documentary about the roots that the modern civilized world has in Greece and Greek culture and the contributions of the Greeks. Really, always a good thing to remember. United States of Animals, season 1. This is a great one to watch with the kids. I've not watched this with my daughter, but it's 2 discs and 12 episodes. All about just amazing animals. Reminds me of Wild Kingdom when I was a kid. Every Sunday I used to watch Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins.
Yes, I love that show.
Wasn't that great? And you know what? It was, what was the other guy? You remember the other guy's
name?
Young
guy.
The young
Steve
guy.
Something.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah.
It was always Marlon. Here's what I remember about that show.
Steve was always having to wrestle alligators. And
that was it. But it was hysterical. Marlon Perkins would go out and he was like Walt Disney of nature. He would say, Steve and I just went out and saw a whole lot of alligators. Steve wrestled them. And he's the guy who's always wrestling them. And, I never understood why he was wrestling them.
Steve, grab that thing and bring it over here.
Oh, we went out and we found ourselves a boa constrictor. Steve wrestled it. And Steve's wrestling the boa constrictor. I never understood why Steve had to go wrestle with the animals and Marlon just sat in the Jeep and watched.
Oh,
it's too funny.
Mutual of Omaha.
Animal Storm Squad, season 1, as long as we're on the animal thing. It's about people rescuing animals in storms. Pretty great. 5 episodes. And it's really touching. It'll kind of get you a little bit weepy. I mean, these, you think in storms, people go, well, rescue the people, rescue the car, we'll rescue all this. And like animals get caught up in those things too, and somebody's got to care for them.
And people put themselves at jeopardy. Firemen, paramedics, police officers, to get kitties and doggies and horse and pigs, all kinds of things, all kinds of to save the animals. Sometimes I think they would leave people in those holes.
Very true.
But we're going to get that kitten out of there.
And then season 1 of The Yard. The Yard is all about shipbuilding and what goes into building ships, and it is exhausting. It really it's amazing building ferries and ships, and it's just it's just too much work. It's specifically focused on Alaska, and it's one. It reminds me like some of those. I think those are TLC dirty jobs.
Yeah.
Ice road truckers and those things. It's like, oh my gosh, you thank God you don't have to actually do what some of these people do. And then kind of sideways from that is Port Protection Season 2. Season 2 on 3 discs, 10 episodes here. And this is focusing primarily on the people who protect our ports. And it's a little bit more, it kind of, sideways from the ship people. It's pretty intense. It's a whole different lifestyle. So there you go.
I got a whole bunch of TV stuff over here. Can I get a little bit of this? A lot of the stuff I actually watch. Broad City Season 3.
Yeah,
I like Broad City. Ileana Glazer, Abby Jacobson.
Yeah,
these two young women, along with Hannibal Buress, of course.
Yeah,
Hannibal Buress being the comedian who we should note outed Bill Cosby, re-outed Bill Cosby.
Oh, wow.
And he was the comedian who sort of brought that all up again about those issues up again, who sort of ignited all of that and led us to led Bill to the place where that is now. A fairly brave thing to do. For one thing, you're Hannibal Buress. Not that many people have heard of you as a comedian, and you have the balls to go out and defend women. People forget the entire context of that joke. It was a joke wherein he was actually supporting women in the business. So it was all thing. And nevertheless, it has nothing to do with this. This is about Broad City Season 3. This is just absolutely hysterically funny to me. These two Jewish girls roaming around New York, being perfectly ridiculous, yet very sharp and very versatile and supporting themselves, doing everything that they can do. Extras include a hack into Broad City and some deleted scenes and some other stuff like that. Funny. In juxtaposition to Broad City, a show about young women in New York, is Girls, which is a show about completely different young women. Sort of in New York, perhaps a little bit higher on the totem pole in terms of society, in terms of social class and things like that. Yet it's still a very neat series that I've enjoyed over the years. This one is, what season is this? Oh, this is the complete season. This is the 5th season. This is a 5-season show, but that's what we have here, the 5th season of Girls. Bonus features includes deleted scenes and extended scenes and some inside some of the episodes. Anyway, a neat series that went on a little bit longer than I thought it might have, given the material that they were covering. But there it is, Girls, the complete 5th season. Bob's Burgers.
Yep.
Well, you're Bob. Are you a Bob's Burgers fan?
I have watched enough to know that I can enjoy it in small pieces, but
I live in the exact same spot.
Yeah,
I can't watch this every day. It's not The Simpsons.
See, Mark's a huge Family Guy fan, and we argue about that on the show all the time. I can enjoy watching the Family Guy. It's a little bit how I feel about South Park these days. Like, I used to love South Park, but now I feel like Family Guy, South Park, I can enjoy a YouTube clip that shows me one joke that lasts about 10 seconds. And then I'm good for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm in touch with what's going on. In touch with culture. Same thing with Bob's Burgers. Nevertheless, this is the complete 5th season. Contains all 21 episodes. And not a whole lot of additional stuff on this. But if you like the series, I guess you don't need a whole lot of additional stuff.
And Blast from the Past, Mad About You, the complete series, which was part of, way back, they even say here, must-see television. This was back on must-see TV Thursday nights. Mill Creek is releasing a lot of these TV things in new boxed sets, which have been previously released. So Sony is kind of handing the baton off to them. They're doing a great job. Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt, still a really good show. One of the best finales ever, and now affordably priced in a new box set. Hairspray Live, another one of those NBC Live musicals. I gotta say, I didn't get it. I don't think it works.
I like that Peter Pan one.
Did you like the Peter Pan one?
You remember the? Yeah. I might have been the first, maybe the second one. I kind of dug that. This one I did not see.
Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing. I love the original Hairspray. I'm not such a fan of the musicalization of it, which I'm happy for John Waters. It made him more money in about like a month of Broadway performances than he made in the rest of his entire career.
Yeah.
So good for him. But I don't know. Live television. Anyway, if you saw it and you liked it, that's fine. And the complete first season of The Grinder. Rob Lowe will not go away. He will just not go away. And he doesn't age. Gosh, I hate him so much.
Watched him in Oxford Blues the other day, about 1984, 85, something like that.
Yeah.
Already moved. He came into the world a movie star.
Yeah.
Just was always a movie star.
I went to school with him.
I know.
I remember very well when he was running for class treasurer in junior high school. He was a year ahead of me. And I remember very well, he went up and he gave us his little speech about what the treasurer does. And I knew another guy, and that was another friend of mine who was also running for treasurer, and he went up second and gave the speech. It was like the exact same speech, and everyone laughed. Everyone started cracking up. And I remember thinking at the time, gosh, he's a lucky guy. He looks good, and he can do no wrong. Everyone loves Rob Lowe, and he wasn't even a star at the time.
No.
He was doing like McDonald's commercials, where it's like, holding the hamburger in the camera. And anyway, so The Grinder. He and Fred Savage are brothers, one it's the mismatched brother thing. One is a TV lawyer, and the other one is an actual lawyer, and the antics and comedy ensue. I'll say this: Rob is very talented and he's very funny, and he's always made really good choices with material.
A certain amount of longevity there that one just simply has to respect. A certain and a bit of a shapeshifter. He was a pretty boy.
Yeah.
Pretty boys from the middle 80s, late 70s, middle 80s, with that jawline and the hair and all that. Not many of those guys made it out.
Nah,
they didn't make it through, never had a chance to do anything serious. Rob did some serious work, for one thing, on the West Wing.
Yeah.
He did serious work on that show.
Sure did.
And there you go. I got a couple over here.
Okay.
Cashmere Mafia.
Ooh.
A series that didn't last very long. From about 2008 or so. Starred Lucy Liu, Frances O'Connor, a few other people like that. Seems like this series would have lasted a little while. It was about all these sort of high-powered women in New York City. Networking with each other and other people that they knew to sort of advance their careers. It struck me as a fairly good idea for a television series. Didn't do all that well. Hung around for one season, Cashmere Mafia. Still, kind of neat. The complete series we have here, because the complete series consists of only one season of the actual show. So that's okay, I suppose. The New Girl. I like The New Girl. With our Zooey Deschanel.
Love Zoe. We've loved Zoe for so long.
It surprises me, though. This is the 5th season that we have here of The New Girl. It surprises me that this show made it that long. It's a one-joke show.
It is.
She's
so charming.
But that's what it is, and that's why it's made it. Her charm, the charm of a couple of the guys who are on the series too, as they go through all sorts of relationship machinations, and it reminds me of That Girl. Remember That Girl?
Oh yeah, totally. Marlo Thomas.
I'm completely giving away my age there. But Zoe is, cuter and sexier and an interesting thing. So
she's just great.
The 5th season of The New Girl on DVD.
Tim, I'm going to take a weird little blast from the past here. Paramount has just released The Love Boat, Season 3, in Volume 1 and Volume 2. Now, look, Love Boat's great guest stars. Everything is wonderful. The 3rd season is even better than the 1st and the 2nd season. So I highly recommend this, but I just want to point something out. Season 1 came out in 2008. Season 2 came out in 2009. And then for some reason, Paramount decided to push pause and force Love Boat fans to go without their fix for 7 years.
What the heck was that about?
I don't know. I mean, the Love Boat ran for, like a good decade at least. So we got a lot of Love Boat coming. I just want to say to Paramount, are you going to wait 7 years between every single new season? Because I'm going to be on Social Security by the time.
The fans will age out. I had a crush on Lauren Tews like you.
Like crazy, yeah.
Crazy crush.
So please get this stuff out there. I mean, figure out what you're going to do with this. I mean, if you're going to do this, then here's what I recommend. Get yourself a big box set, the complete Love Boat, and get it out there. The whole thing. The whole thing.
Just push the whole thing out there.
No more half seasons.
The Love Boat is all about the guest stars anyway. It's all about watching the Love Boat and seeing who walks onto that ship.
Sonny Bono, Charo, and Joe Namath, my all-time favorites. Those 3. Fabulous.
Fantastic. Star Trek.
Enterprise.
Star Trek Enterprise. In a big box set seasons 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then as a separate disc, season 4. In the set, not exactly sure why that, but anyway, nevertheless, you get all 97 episodes on a 27 disc set. The complete series. I was a big fan of this series. I know a lot of people try to ignore it or skip it or pretend like it doesn't exist. I'm a big fan of Scott Bakula for one thing.
Yeah, it was. I like that they went to where they tried to go on the show. I just don't think fans really wanted to go to that place. It's a little too close to our point in time.
Yeah,
you know, it tried to tie the now to the then and sort of stitch it together.
I think it's a perfectly decent link. It's a Western, basically. It's just a Western anyway, and it's a perfect. That series, for me, was the one that lived in a space, particularly because of the way that it started. You know, started there in the cornfields with the Klingon running through the cornfields, and all of the dress was kind of contemporary. The clothing that people was wearing, and there was like a little space car or something like that. But generally, in watching that series, and when it first started, I kept thinking to myself, this could be in my lifetime.
Well, that's it. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to give you something where you felt like I could touch this.
Exactly. This isn't so distant from me here now. So
I give them credit for that.
I liked it.
It fills in some important mortar in the Star Trek universe. So I'm sorry it didn't last longer.
Which they're a little bit better about, frankly, than they are in the Star Wars universe. In the Star Wars universe, that new movies in there, Rogue is in they write a prequel to the thing.
Heavens.
They're not so good at that.
No.
They will just make stuff up, ignore things. So anyway, whatever.
Sleepy Hollow, complete third season.
I loved that show when it was on.
This show. I mean, it's not the movie. I just want to point out, it's not the Tim Burton movie. This is I know people are like, oh, they made it. No, it's a different deal. This is all 18 episodes from season 3, and really, really sharp show. Got a lot of mileage out of. Kind of switching the premise up, but
you take this show. It's a nutty premise for a show, and it went sideways 3 or 4 times over I think the last season was maybe last season.
But in creative ways.
But in creative ways, you got Orlando Jones running around this show. You got Ichabod Crane.
Yeah.
You have Nicole Bahari, who's so hot it's ridiculous, and she's just FBI. This is what I like about the show. I'll just go ahead and
the whole time travel aspect kind of it's cool.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
You got Nicole Bahari, who starts off as a cop, a sheriff, then becomes a detective, and by the time the show ends, she's an FBI agent. I'm like, this is just an amazing career arc that this young woman's had. But this is what I love about that show. She had a gun, and she wasn't afraid to use it. Every episode of that show, Nicole Bahari was just capping the hell out of demons. I mean, she's just cranking all 15 out of that clip she would use.
Just good action.
That was a lot of fun.
And then my last 2 here, we're getting close to the end of the show. I Love Lucy Superstar Special number 2. I cannot endorse these. I don't know why Paramount keeps doing this. They owe us a lot of seasons of I Love Lucy on Blu-ray. They have not finished that run up. They keep trying to milk it with these colorized Superstar specials, which are just terrible. The show should not be colorized, first of all. I Love Lucy lives in black and white. That's the best way it is. It was shot by one of the great cinematographers of all time, who shot many great silent films. It should live in black and white. You should honor his achievement. This is just a couple of episodes from the Hollywood trip. Lucy visits Grauman's and Lucy and John Wayne, which are, of course, 2 episodes that plug together because she takes John Wayne's footprints out of Grauman's theater and breaks them, and then has to get him to step accidentally. She tries to lure him to step in concrete again. It's very funny episodes, but keep it in black and white, and don't release these kinds of pandering color specials. I can't endorse them. And then this is actually another National Geographic thing. I neglected to mention this on the previous run, but this is a really good one. It does stand alone. Season 1 of The Story of God. Yeah. With Morgan Freeman. Yeah. And Morgan Freeman, who has played God, we should point out.
Yeah, quite well.
Very well. Very accurately, I would guess. But a really, really interesting look at the power of faith around the world, and belief systems in art and in culture and all this stuff. It just it's an amazing kind of anthropological philosophical, theological journey, and you couldn't hope for anyone other better than Morgan Freeman to sort of take you on it. It is really wonderful.
It's not pointed in any way. It's not trying to convince anybody of anything.
No.
It's talking about history. It's talking about people and the way people think about these things. He does that with science too. He has a show called Through the Worm.
Yes, which is great.
Which is also very interesting fellow Morgan and what he does. The complete 11th 1/1 season of Bones.
I would never have pegged this show to last this long, especially because he was on Buffy.
He was on Buffy and on Angel. He's one of the richest guys.
Oh, I'm sure.
He was on Buffy for several seasons. Had to spin off Angel several seasons, and
he
now
hasn't had time to spend his money
to do anything.
It works,
and he's an executive producer. And plus, it features Zoe's big sister. On the show too, so we were talking about Zoe Deschanel a little bit.
Yeah.
So big sister's on the show here. 4th season of Ray Donovan. I never really quite caught on to Ray Donovan. I know it's a very popular show for people who like it. About this guy who's a fixer in Hollywood, fixer in L.A., going around taking care of, kind of connected his father.
Jon Voight.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Eddie Marsan and some great actors in this television show. What I do like about Ray Donovan is the way it makes LA look.
I know.
It uses LA, not just the Capitol Records building, not just Man's Chinese or the Chinese Theater. So Ray Donovan, complete 4th season, includes several special features, including some character profiles. So Ray Donovan.
And wrapping out the show, just want to plug some really cool anime, some really interesting stuff from Funimation. We've got a lot of anime to get out, so there are a few here that I think are worth making mention of. The first two, really just amazing animation. It's amazing how far this stuff has come. The complete season of Chaos Dragon, which is fantasy stuff. These two fantasy countries that are warring in kind of, it's a little bit of Lord of the Rings type thing, two fantasy warring lands. And they have, there are guardian dragons and all kinds of fascinating politics and soap opera machinations to the way these two nations intertwine, and it's really interesting, and the animation is so cool. Also really good is Sword of the Stranger. This is the movie Sword of the Stranger. This is both of these are Blu-ray and DVD combo packs. They both came out end of last year. Sword of the Stranger is a little more straightforward. It's not as fantasy oriented. It takes place in feudal era Japan, and it's about a boy and his dog who are sort of tools in the fulfillment of this ancient prophecy, and they have to escape Chinese assassins who have come across the water from the Ming Dynasty. Really beautifully done. If you're into Asian culture from that particular time, really fascinating stuff. Super cool. And then a little bit lighter is Good Luck, Ninomiya-kun, the complete series. This gets into the whole school thing. A lot of anime shows are based around school kids who have powers or who are aliens or who are taught by aliens. Or it's just, everything in Japanese school must be so boring that they have to invent these crazy
so hard
stories
that it breaks their brains.
Well, anyway, this is about Shungo Ninomiya, who is a kid in high school with a mercenary sister and who lives in a giant house. And she has a secret as well. She's a succubus. Yeah. And has to learn how to control her powers. Anyway, it's one of those fantasy things imposed on a school story. And kind of similar is Castletown Dandelion, which is a complete series on Blu-ray and DVD combo. By the way, Good Luck Ninomiya-kun is on DVD only. Castletown Dandelion, complete series on Blu-ray and DVD combo pack, as are most of the Funimation titles. And this deals with a family that, like Ninomiya, they appear to be normal, but they're actually royal, and they're like this reality show family, and it's a little bit like taking it's a little bit like if you were to take the Osbournes from that era of reality show television and turn that into a weird Japanese anime series on steroids. That's the only way I can think to put it. Anyway, it's fun, it's weird, it's wacky, it's a little bit fringe. But for the animation, the quality of the animation, Sword of the Stranger movie and Chaos Dragon complete series, just top-notch animation. Really, really good stuff. All right. Tim, with that, we are done.
Good.
Have a great time at the LA Film Critics Awards
I will do
dinner.
us all well. Mark should be back by the time you guys.
Mark will be back for the next show, hopefully. If not, we'll if he's back with too little time to catch up on anything, we'll pull you in again. But
if anything happens at the LA Film Critics,
that would be fabulous. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.